Sorry about that, we had a technical glitch there. And now with the news in detail. I'm Dennis Chabrol. Good morning. Guyana will continue to rely on Brazil for support in ensuring Venezuela complies with the International Court of Justice's ICJ final ruling on the border controversy with its Western Spanish-speaking neighbor. International Relations Professor Dr. Demera at the same time advises that Guyana should stiffen its lobby of Latin American nations to convince Venezuela that it should obey the final decision on Guyana's case concerning the validity of the 1899 Arbitral Tribunal award on the land boundary with Guyana. Venezuela last week restated that it does not regard the International Court of Justice as the final arbiter in hearing Guyana's case, that the 1899 award is full, final, and perfect. Instead, Venezuela maintains in its interpretation that the 1966 Geneva Agreement provides for political talks with Guyana as the only means of settling the border controversy. Meanwhile, Vice President Barajaglio says Guyana is continuing its international lobby, including Latin American nations, to ensure that Venezuela complies with a final ruling expected in 2025. He says Brazil, Latin America's economic and political powerhouse, continues to support Guyana because that country does not want its borders to be altered. Vice President Barajaglio was last week speaking following the ICJ's ruling on the preliminary point that Britain has an indispensable role to play in the border case. The Guyana government's petroleum website has been hacked and replaced with a Venezuelan map that includes Guyana's Essequibo region. This occurred shortly after the International Court of Justice dismissed Caracas's position that Britain is an indispensable party to the case. Minister of Natural Resources Vikram Barrett confirmed that petroleum.gov.gy was hacked and said the incident was being addressed by the National Data Management Authority NDMA. Up to Sunday night, that website remained offline. Another top Natural Resources Ministry official said that while information from the hacked website had also been posted on other government websites, the compromised portal contained vital information about Guyana's inaugural bid round for the 14 offshore blocks. The official sought to assure that the bid round process will not be affected by the cyber attack because it's being done through a different URL. The pro-Venezuelan banner has since been removed, but there is no content on the website. There were several vehicular incidents on the Linden Lethem Trail as hundreds of persons were traveling to participate in the annual Easter weekend rodeo. Most of the vehicles either toppled or turned on their sides. Police reported on one of the incidents that left one person dead and several others injured. That is 28-year-old Albert Straker of Robb Street border. That incident occurred on Friday on the Mamura Trail in the vicinity of Marion Hill, upper Demera River. Police were told that the pickup was proceeding south along the eastern side of the Mamura Trail at a fast rate. According to investigators, while negotiating a bend, the driver reportedly lost control of the vehicle, which turned turtle and came to a halt. As a result, the driver and 5 occupants received injuries and were picked up in an unconscious condition by public spirited citizens and taken to the Linden Hospital complex, where Abdul Straker died while receiving medical attention. The driver and the 4 other occupants were treated and admitted to the hospital. And in accident news just coming to hand from the police, investigators are saying that a fatal accident occurred at about 2 o'clock yesterday morning on the access road at Elmore, East Coast of Marara. The accident involved a motorcycle owned and driven by Diochan Das, a 28-year-old resident of 10th Street Fowles, East Coast of Marara. Pillion rider Parashram Sanchari, now deceased, a 29-year-old resident of Hope West Elmore, and pedal cyclist Imran Bacchus, a 30-year-old resident of Grassfield Elmore. Police say that the pedal cyclist was proceeding north along the western side of the Elmore access road while the motorcycle was proceeding south along the center road when a collision occurred. As a result of the collision, police say the motorcyclist, pillion rider, and pedal cyclist fell onto the road surface and received injuries. They were picked up by the police and members of the Guyana Fire Service EMT and conveyed to the Georgetown Public Hospital, where they were seen and examined by doctors on duty. The pillion rider, Parishram Sanchari, succumbed to his injuries yesterday, while the motorcyclist and the pedal cyclist were admitted to the Georgetown Public Hospital. Sanchari's body is at the Georgetown Public Hospital's mortuary awaiting an autopsy. A 44-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the stabbing death of the operator of an apartment complex at Red Hill Northwest District. The murder suspect is a pork knocker and lives at Anns Grove, east coast of Marara. Investigators were told that the perpetrator stabbed the 24-year-old Joel Ramhit, who allegedly entered his room and stole his haversack containing his personal belongings. Police say another man informed the assailant that Ramit allegedly entered a guest's room and stole the haversack. He was seen by a man who took him to the guest house. Police say the guest whipped out a knife and stabbed Ramit to his abdomen. The victim, with his intestines protruding, ran to Port Kaituma police station and made a report. He was rushed to a hospital in a critical condition and he later died. Police say the suspect was arrested and a search was conducted inside his room, which revealed one black-handled knife with a red substance that appeared to be blood in it. Turning to news now from the region, a Surinamese man has been arrested in Nigeria, allegedly with cocaine in his possession. Star News reports that 34-year-old Dada Lorenzo Harvey Albert was arrested by National Drug Law Enforcement Agency officers at Port Harcourt International Airport, Rivers State, Nigeria. Authorities say he had hidden 117 packages of cocaine in oversized latex condoms, factory packaged in 100 milliliter bottles of body spray. In a statement, NDLEA spokesperson Femi Babafemi said the suspect alleged that he had gone to Nigeria in search of his long-lost Nigerian father, whom he called Omini. Antigua and Barbuda's Ministry of Education has extended the Easter holiday after teachers there threatened to go on industrial action to press demands to address several grievances. The Antigua and Barbuda Union of Teachers, in a correspondence dated 4th April, has signaled their intention to engage in industrial action starting April 14. The reason given for their planned course of action is that the membership of the union is dissatisfied with the progress made by the government on outstanding issues raised. The Ministry of Education says it hopes that the additional 4 days holiday will provide a time for an agreement to be reached with the Antigua and Barbuda Union of Teachers. Authorities there say that children cannot be left unsupervised or under-supervised, particularly at this time of immense challenge with antisocial behavior among young people. Turning to news now from the diaspora in the United States. A New Jersey imam was stabbed during Sunday morning prayers, according to reports. The assailant, who was allegedly a member of the congregation at the Omar Mosque on Gettys Avenue in South Patterson, was quickly restrained by other worshippers. It was not immediately clear what sparked the stabbing. A source told Pix 11 that the suspected attacker just got up and started stabbing the man just before 6 a.m. The suspect's identity has not been released at this time. The Imam, Syed El-Nakim, was in stable condition at St. Joseph's University Medical Center. In Toronto, police say a man is in custody after a suspected hate-motivated incident in which he allegedly drove a vehicle directly toward a worshipper at a Toronto area mosque, yelled threats, and uttered racial slurs. A release issued by York Regional Police Sunday said Toronto resident Sharon Karanakaran, 28 years old, was located and arrested shortly after midnight on Friday. On Thursday, officers responded to a call for a disturbance at a mosque on Denison Street in Markham, Ontario, the release states. Witnesses reported that the male suspect, now alleged to be Karnakuran had attended a mosque in a vehicle and drove directly at one of the worshippers, yelling threats and religious slurs. The suspect drove dangerously in the parking lot before leaving the property. Karnakuran has been charged with 1 count of uttering threats, 1 count of assault with weapon, and 1 count of dangerous driving. The charges have not been proven in court. For the first time in the history of Rutgers University, the unions representing nearly 9,000 faculty and staff members will go on strike Monday morning. The strike will impact the Newark, New Brunswick, and Camden campuses, affecting nearly 6,000 to 7,000 students and potentially disrupting graduation. Negotiations took place on Sunday between Rutgers and the 3 unions representing nearly 9,000 tenured professors, adjunct professors, and medical staff, but a deal was not reached. Medical staff in patient-facing positions will continue to provide care during the strike. The unions are asking for a pay increase to help partially offset inflation and a living wage for graduate workers who currently make approximately $30,000 per year. The unions also want adjunct professors to earn the same amount of money per class as their faculty counterparts. Currently, adjunct professors make roughly half. They're also asking for a rent freeze for the students. And now we go to the BBC World Service for the latest bulletin of international news.
Hello, I'm Emily Thomas with the BBC News. 2 of China's most high-profile legal activists who campaigned for government transparency and civil rights have been sentenced to 12 and 14 years in prison. Xu Jiang and Ding Jiaxi were found guilty of subversion following a closed-door trial last June. Here's Celia Hatton.
Xu Zhiyong, a prominent human rights lawyer, and Ding Jiaxi, a civil rights activist, were founders of a loose collection of campaigners known as the New Citizens Movement. They fought for the Chinese authorities to uphold the rights outlined in the country's constitution. In real terms, they wanted the children of migrant workers to be able to attend schools in cities and for government officials to disclose their wealth. And they've now been handed lengthy sentences for subversion. Both men have also been tortured in prison.
Beijing has warned that Taiwanese independence and peace are mutually exclusive concepts as Chinese military continues drills around an island Beijing sees as its own. The Taiwanese military said it was responding calmly. The military exercises began just hours after Taiwan's president returned home from a visit to the US, where she met the House Speaker. The BBC's Shaima Khalil has more.
All of that, of course, is in the context of China's anger, its response to the Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen meeting Kevin McCarthy. They see this as U.S. interference in what they see as China's internal policy. But of course, Taiwan wants closer ties with the United States. But what we're seeing now is China essentially coming out on its promise of reprisals after that meeting.
Twitter's owner Elon Musk has asked the BBC for clarification about how it's funded after objections from the corporation that one of its accounts on the platform had been labelled government-funded media. The BBC is largely paid for by the British public and says it's independent of government control. Our technology correspondent James Clayton has been in contact with Mr Musk over the issue.
I actually emailed him. I have his email address. I just thought it would be interesting for him to know that actually the BBC, it's not actually funded directly by the government. It's funded by the license fee payer. The best way of getting to Elon Musk is either to email him or to tweet him. He's a very, very idiosyncratic person. And sometimes when you reach out, he does respond. And he's genuinely responding in a really thoughtful way.
Palestinian health officials say that Israeli troops have shot dead a Palestinian during a raid in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli army said its forces were operating in a refugee camp near Jericho without giving further details. Earlier, the army said that 2 soldiers were likely wounded during an overnight operation in Nablus. The incident came as Israel continued to search for gunmen who carried out an attack on Friday that killed 2 British Israeli sisters. World News from the BBC. The wife of a prominent Pakistani investigative journalist has appealed to the UN to set up an independent inquiry into the killing of her husband in Kenya. Arshad Sharif was shot dead last October by police at a roadblock on the outskirts of Nairobi. Before his death, he had been investigating corruption within the Pakistani elite and had fled the country after reportedly receiving death threats. A third body has been extracted from the rubble of a building that collapsed on Sunday in the French city of Marseille. City authorities said at least 5 people remain unaccounted for. 200 people had to be evacuated from their homes after the blast, with investigators looking at the possibility of a gas leak. The city's mayor, Benoit Payan, said search and rescue operations will continue.
If there are any people alive left under the rubble, they must be safeguarded at all costs, and so it is stone by stone that we continue this work, that we will continue all day. There is still hope, and as long as there is hope, we will not stop.
Indian officials have denied reports that trade negotiations with Britain have been suspended. They described as baseless claims that Delhi had disengaged from the talks after Britain failed to take action after a Sikh separatist group attacked the Indian High Commission in London. British diplomats in Delhi said negotiations were continuing. The Dalai Lama has apologised after footage showed him asking a boy if he wanted to suck the Tibetan spiritual leader's tongue. In a statement, his office issued an apology to the boy and his family and said the Dalai Lama had simply meant to innocently tease the child. Videos showing him kissing the boy on his lips went viral on social media on Sunday. Many were outraged at the behaviour of the 87-year-old, though some explained that sticking one's tongue out is a form of greeting in Tibet. That's the latest world news from the BBC, with me, Emily Thomas.
And that's the news to the moment.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
Now to end the news. Now to end the news, a recap of the highlights. Guyana will continue to rely on Brazil for support in ensuring Venezuela complies with the International Court of Justice's final ruling on the border controversy with its western Spanish-speaking neighbor. The Guyana government's petroleum website was hacked and replaced with a Venezuelan map that includes Guyana's Essequibo region. A 404-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the stabbing death of the operator of an apartment complex at Red Hill, Northwest District. In the Caribbean, in neighboring Suriname, a man has been arrested in Nigeria, allegedly with cocaine in his possession. And Antigua and Barbuda's Ministry of Education is gearing up for a teacher's strike there and has extended the Easter holidays. In the diaspora, a New Jersey imam was stabbed during Sunday morning prayers, according to reports. And for the first time in the history of Rutgers University, the unions representing nearly 9,000 faculty staff will go on strike on Monday morning. That's the end of the news, which came to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.